It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I just learned Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. All the cash back from eating at your favorite soup dumpling restaurant doubled. All the cash back from the trip where you sort of learned how to snowboard also doubled. And the best part, you don't have to do anything ridiculous to get it. Nope, Discover does it automatically. Seriously though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news. On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, we're diving into Game 3 action across the league. Can McDavid pull some magic out of the hat, or will it be Draisaitl doing his thing? Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the lab, everybody. That is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you for joining us for the Friday edition and for making us your first listen every single day. You are joined today by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steel Roden, as always, and your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. On today's episode, my friends, it's Game 3 action spectacular. What we saw in Game 2 between the Islanders and Hurricanes, Wild and Stars. We got everything from the Game 2 to Game 3 action that you need on today's episode. And, of course, we're talking about, is the Connor McDavid show going to pop off, Steel? I need to know. I really need to know. And we're going to get to everything in between, including a busted hand from Toivo Teravainen and big-time bets at the end of the episode. Steel, another big week in the NHL. The playoffs, full swing. I've been trying to hold it down over here. I appreciate you riding with me every single day, Monday through Friday. Let's get to the action we saw, Game 2. Let's get to the action in Game 3. Islanders, Hurricanes. Another spicy one, closely contested. Tell me what you saw.
This is the type of action we were going to see in this series. Low-scoring games, or at least very competitive. One-goal games every single time, and that's what we've gotten so far. Unfortunately for the Islanders, they find themselves down 0-2 in the series, heading back to UBS Arena, back in New York. We've seen this from the Carolina Hurricanes the past postseason, where they won every single game at home and lost every single one on the road. It hasn't really worked out. It hasn't really worked out for the Islanders so far, but I don't think that they've been outworked in this series whatsoever. You go back to Game 1. The Islanders were able to out-hit, out-block, and had less turnovers than the Carolina Hurricanes. You look at Game 2 stats as well. They out-hit the Hurricanes 54-28, tied in blocks, and also had less turnovers in Game 2. They had 5 compared to Carolina's 11. So for me, it's not that they're being outworked. There's just two differences that I've seen, that the Carolina Hurricanes are executing more efficient than the New York Islanders. Number one, it's the penalties. The Islanders are just taking really dumb penalties right now. Very loose sticks where they're catching people in the face, high sticking penalties, tripping penalties. Even though the Islanders penalty kill has been very good, they went 5 for 6 last game. They had 6 penalties. That's still absolutely terrible, especially when you look at the Hurricanes, and they didn't have 1 penalty whatsoever. So number one, they're taking really dumb penalties. And number 2, it's quantity over quality right now for the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes are out shooting the Islanders 73-52 in the first 2 games. Point. They're putting pucks on net, and that's what you got to do. Just keep firing pucks on net, and good things will happen. They're out shooting. They don't care about the quality chances like the New York Islanders care right now, because in Game 1 they had 26 shots. In Game 2 they had 26 shots, and they're losing by one goal right now. So I think they need to change their attitude and have quantity over quality, because the quality chances are not bearing.
They need to just put pucks on net. I so agree with you 100%, because they just don't have the offensive juggernaut pieces to rely on. You know, there's no real stud that they can turn to. Of course, they have their guns, but you know what I mean? They got to rely on almost the team effort, I would say. And if they can actually up those pucks on net, I think the goals will start to come because, like you said, these have been 2 tightly contested games. And at the top of my takeaways from last night or 2 nights ago, there was a couple of really weird bounces in this game.
Yeah.
Like a couple of goals were like, it was like bink, bink, and in on a couple of those plays. So it could have honestly gone, I think, a lot differently in terms of result in game 2. That's why I'm excited to see what happens here in game 3. But obviously, we got to talk about that slash from Pajot. Bust Teravainen's hand. I don't know if you saw that one. That was a nasty play. I'm surprised that more didn't come out of this. Maybe a suspension or maybe at least a look because Brind'Amour was cheesed. I don't know if you saw that after. He was not happy.
Yeah, I didn't see Brind'Amour's reaction. I was able to catch a clip on Twitter just before we hopped on here to record this episode. And he definitely got him on the hands. But
he's done for the series, by the way.
For watching the replay, though, it didn't look like it affected him at the time. It looked like he was skating behind the net and everything was as normal as could be. But that's very unfortunate. He definitely caught him on the hands. A missed penalty from the officials right there. And that's the type of penalties that I'm talking about. Just that one went unnoticed. But that's the type of penalties that the Islanders are, again, that one went unnoticed, but are getting caught a lot of the time. Unfortunate high sticking, slashing, and tripping penalties that just shouldn't be taken. Very undisciplined situations for the Islanders.
We got a lot more to get to on today's episode, including a breakdown of the Friday betting board. Steele's got his locks. I got my locks. A couple of good angles to take for that Friday betting board. I got a few discussion topics I need to run by you about this Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid situation and the evolving Evan Bouchard play. And of course, Steele's coming with that Minnesota Wild Dallas Stars heat because game 3 tonight in Minnesota, I think that home crowd in mini hint to the bets could be huge. But if you don't mind, all I wanted to say quickly before we move on from this series is Matt Barzal's starting to get his legs under him, and he's one of the best skaters in the NHL. I don't think that's a bold take. He can just fly like the wind, and he's starting to look real comfortable. So I think if he can maybe settle in, Steele, this series is far from over, and I think that goaltender, our boy Ilya, is going to need to steal one for the Islanders to maybe turn the tide in that series. Where would you like to head to next? I think you want to go Boston, Florida.
Yeah, we got to go to the Boston Bruins versus the Florida Panthers series. Panthers tie it up 1-1 heading back to Florida. And for me, the storyline in this series has been Alex Lyon. He has been unstoppable for the Panthers. A great story for them as well, just getting a crack in the NHL, crack in the playoffs. A great first game, gets even better in game 2 with a .920 save percentage. And honestly, I was a little surprised that the Panthers came out that hot. I didn't think that they would win this game at TD Garden on the road, but great effort for all around. Sam Bennett getting back in the lineup after missing 14 games with an injury for a month. So, he gets back on the score sheet as well. And to me, Alex Lyon was great. He's been the storyline, but also on the other end, at the very 200 feet away from him, Linus Ullmark just didn't look dialed in whatsoever in game 2. Wasn't able to find pucks easily. A squeaky first goal on that Sam Bennett goal to get things going for the Panthers. And talking about the Panthers, Brandon Montour was absolutely incredible in game 2. Walking the line, perfect shot placement, getting pucks on net, and just perfect shot placement again from Brandon Montour. So great job from the Panthers heading back to Florida with a tied 1-1 series. And for game 3, I do see the Bruins get, kind of rejuvenating themselves on the road. They were without Patrice Bergeron, and that obviously has been a downfall for them, especially in game 2. But I think they get a lot better, and we see the regular Boston Bruins in game 3.
Great point about Ullmark. He was right at the top of my takeaways. First, one of the few really shaky performances I've seen from him.
That's not typical Boston Bruin hockey.
Not a good time to be doing that, though, Steele. And we did say, I believe, I had Bruins in 6. So I think the Panthers are going to get at least 1 or 2 in there. They got 1. But that was a bit of a message sent as well, because what I also have down here, and I think we can agree, it just looked like, and you mentioned it, a letdown from the Boston Bruins. And could it be the illness to a bunch of different players catching up to them?
Yeah, it definitely could be.
Very well could be that. So that's why I might be laying a little bit of juice on the old Boston Bruins to bounce back in a big way in game 3. Tease to the bets at the end of the show. But all I think I really have to say is We knew that offense was going to have to come from the blue line for the Florida Panthers to have success.
Yeah.
It happens. They win. If Montour, Forsling, and we know Ekblad needs to step up, if he can also be effective offensively, I think maybe we're in for another battle here, Steele. But Verhaeghe gets a goal. You know I'm loving that. Some of their big guns get up theirs and they're effective up front offensively. They get a big-time win. We got to talk about the Edmonton Oilers. Like I alluded to, Leon Draisaitl is doing special things, scoring on the one-timer. I got some good one-timer stats for y'all out there. I want to talk a little bit about the bottom six in Edmonton as well. And, of course, we got Steele's favorite series on tap coming up. Why was Marc-Andre Fleury in net? We're going to get to that specific question right after the break, including big-time bets at the end of the show. But today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team, it's all about the perfect fit and making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to be just right. So the next time you're in need of parts and accessories, you know you got to head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part that you need fits just right the first time around. Just add it to your ride in my garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And when you shop at eBay Motors, it's just that. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Hey there, Locked On listener. Erica L. Ayala from Locked On Kraken here. And I just learned Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right. Everything you've earned doubled. All of the cash back from eating at your favorite soup dumpling restaurant doubled. All the cash back from that trip where you sort of learned to snowboard also doubled. And the best part, you don't have to do anything ridiculous to get it. Nope, Discover does it automatically. Seriously though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you go check out Ian McLaren of Locked On Bruins and Armando Velez of the Locked On Panthers Florida podcast. They do a fantastic job as well, breaking down the series in full every single game. I know we want to get to the Edmonton Oilers and L.A. Kings, talk about McDavid, talk about Draisaitl, but let's break down exactly what transpired in Game 2 between the Minnesota Wild and Dallas Stars. Flip, were you as surprised as I was that Marc-Andre Fleury got the nod instead of Philip Gustafsson?
Yes, because right at the top of what you and I needed to talk about here is, and I know you said that the tandem plan was out the window, but very clearly I think it was promised to this veteran goaltender, and coaches had to follow through on their word. I hope now that they've been honored, their word has been honored, Gustafsson sees the cage for the rest of the series, because I think not only has he earned it, and this is where I want your take on this, because I know you've watched a lot more Wild hockey than I have. Marc-Andre Fleury has always been a bit of a scrappy goalie. He's always been a little bit of a swimmer in that net, and he can get a little erratic. But he just doesn't have – he looks like he's lost a step, in my opinion, and I just don't think he has it anymore. And is he still good? Is he still serviceable as a backup? I would say 100%. But Philip Gustafsson has got to get the run out here, in my opinion, especially after all 7 goals against. I'm going to say 2 or 3 were straight snipes, and he couldn't have it in that one that was a banging on the rebound, bad rebound control, but maybe not his fault either. So hit me with your take there. But Gustafsson, that was a shock,
Yeah, I was very surprised that Marc-Andre Fleury got the nod instead of Philip Gustafsson in Game 2, especially the performance he did in Game 1. When I realized that Fleury was going to be in net, I just had a very weird feeling that the Stars were going to absolutely pump the Minnesota Wild in Game 2. It's just like you said, he's not that calm goalie anymore. Really has been throughout his career. He's a very scrappy, very contesting goaltender, always very far out of the crease in the blue paint. So I don't know. Just when I realized that he was going to be in the crease, I had a weird feeling that that was going to be the type of game and score that we were going to see in game 2. And even with that being said, I was rooting for Flower. I was rooting for Fleury to go out there and succeed. And I understand the decision from the coaching staff in the Minnesota Wild to put Marc-Andre Fleury in game 2. Maybe he can go out there, put the performance of a lifetime, and you take another game and you go up back home 2-0 in a series. You're also protecting Philip Gustafsson, who, again, is still at the early stages of his career, just had a very long game 1 going double overtime, 51 saves in game 1. So I understand trying to protect him, but again, after that type of performance, I would have rather seen Philip Gustafsson. Exactly the same thing that the Dallas Stars with Jake Ottinger. He's your number 1 guy, and after both those performances, they both should have been in the net in game 2. So I understand it, but at the same time, I think the Minnesota Wild are leaving Dallas very, very lucky with the series tied 1-1. It could have easily been 2-0 Dallas after game 1. It just took a very weird bounce to get by Jake Ottinger.
Good point.
But yeah, they're very lucky to leave Dallas with a 1-1 series tied.
I agree with you. And my other thing that I just needed to talk about, aside from the questionable goaltending situation, which I think was obviously a top and hot topic, especially after 7 goals are allowed in a playoff game, when we know how good Gustafsson has been, I would have for sure liked to seen him out there again. And he
should have been.
I didn't even think about the protecting angle before. And I'm here for it a little bit because he is so inexperienced. But also now what you've seen from Flower for the most part of this season, he was good for a couple of streaks. You got to go with Gustafsson. And sorry, go ahead. Hit me.
I will say this on Marc-Andre Fleury's behalf. In game 2, the Minnesota Wild had to juggle their lineup because they didn't have Ryan Hartman anymore in game 2 because he was out with injury. They still don't have Joel Eriksson Ek. They're without John Klingberg on the back end as well. So they actually had Matt Boldy playing second line center. So they had to juggle some lineups around to kind of fill in after that Ryan Hartman injury. So Marc-Andre Fleury was embarrassing. He did not play great, but the Minnesota Wild are without three crucial players right now in the lineup.
Yeah, that's going to happen this time of year, but I hear you and I appreciate this other angle. Very lastly, before we head on to talk about Draisaitl's magic and where Connor McDavid has been in the series so far, and I think maybe the Oilers might be lucky to have this game going to L.A.
Yes, they are.
So we're going to talk about that in a second. And, of course, our locks of the night and our betting breakdown. Roope Hintz scores a goal at even strength on the penalty kill and on the power play. That doesn't happen very often, and he did it in pretty impressive fashion, Steele. This is a player that now without Pavelski, and I think Pavelski might even be back next game. I'm unsure if we have any updates there.
I'm not sure he's back for next game. There was a lot of reports about him still dealing, he's in concussion protocol. I don't think he's back for game 3.
True. So he gets it done in a big way without one of his line mates. They've been getting it done now for a year and a half with that line going together. So
yeah, it's been about that.
If Hintz can ride this magic, Steele, the Wild are in for, I think, some trouble because he is one of the more underrated stars in the game. And I just had to tip my cap to a player that I think is right on the cusp. And lastly, what a crazy series so far. I think this might have been the most underrated, sneaky good series so far.
Everyone always sleeps on the Wild for some reason. They don't like watching Minnesota hockey, but it's always great hockey.
Well, there you go. And I'm excited to see how that XL Energy Center is going to be rocking tonight. We're going to talk about big time bets in a sec, but if you're okay with it, let's head over to this Edmonton Oilers situation because after blowing another 2-goal lead in game 2, and then holding it down this time, Stuart Skinner making some timely saves when they needed him. Leon Draisaitl doing his thing. I think the Edmonton Oilers are relatively lucky to be having this series go to L.A. at even 1-1. And if I'm an Oilers fan, I'm a little bit nervous about what's going on with Connor McDavid because he's been so good that my expectations are so high for this guy that he's just not getting it done to what this Oilers team, and he can thank his buddy Leon, or else this series is 0-2.
Yeah, exactly that point. Playoff Leon is just a different breed, a different animal. He pretty much is. And, I haven't watched a game live yet. I haven't watched either of them in full either, just catching the highlights after the game's over. But I'm definitely watching and I'm tuning in for Game 3 in LA because it's been an incredible series so far.
It has been.
What both sides are doing, not just Draisaitl, but Adrian Kempe and Victor Arvidsson and Anze Kopitar. This is an incredible series as well. And to go to your point about Connor McDavid, I think Drew Doughty and the LA Kings defensive group is just doing an outstanding job keeping him to the perimeter. Exactly what they said in the pre-series. Just smacking them in the mouth, keeping him on the perimeter and making sure he has no time and space. But in doing so, you're leaving Draisaitl over, and that's why he's been so dominant. But instead of those two guys, I've been fairly impressed with Korpisalo in this series, making some timely big saves. I thought both goaltenders were pretty good in Game 2. For Stuart Skinner, though, I didn't like either of the goals that he let in. Both of them squeaked in under and over the skate plate.
He was still good.
No, he was good. He was good. But both of those goals squeaked under and over the pad or over the skate plate when he was, up against the post. I didn't think both of those should have gone in. Just very fair, very, very I don't know how it snuck in. It's just like one of those shots that just found a way in somehow. So
yeah, the Velarde
two bad goals, but nonetheless, he made the rest of the stops, he made the rest of the saves, and he got the win.
He got the saves when they needed them the most.
Exactly.
That's really what I had here in the clutch. He was very, this guy doesn't even look like a rookie steal. I think that's what impresses me the most about him. He looks pretty confident in that cage. And just let me hit you with this. That Leon Draisaitl one-timer is lethal. He led the league this season with 28 one-timer goals. Maybe getting the puck fed to you by McDavid helps. The power play was better for the Oilers, and that's a key to their success. They're going to need to continue to score on that power play. And lastly, before we head to big-time bets, with McDavid struggling a little bit, they're going to need someone from that bottom six to ride some kind of wave. Yesterday, it was Klim Kostin who got the win for them. They're going to need some kind of that playoff magic, I think, because this Kings team is not messing around. And I said Oilers in 5. That's clearly a little bit. I'm going to have to get very, very lucky here for that because, again, and maybe it's me with these cop-out answers. 7 games is very likely when I see how close these first two have been between the Oilers and the Kings.
1-7 last year, could likely go 7 this year as well. Look, this is, to me, the Minnesota Wild Dallas Stars has been the best series so far. Obviously, we're just going to be able to catch Game 2 for the rest of the series just last night. But that's been the best series. Right behind it, the LA Kings and Connor McDavid's Edmonton Oilers. 2 series in the Western Conference that have just been outstanding. Let's get over to big-time bets, though.
Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. With the cost of groceries going up and up, now is the perfect time to get started with HelloFresh. HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout. I love HelloFresh for that exact reason. It saves me time and money, and I don't have to sacrifice taste or quality. For more information, go to HelloFresh.com/NHL60 and use code NHL60 for 60% off plus free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/NHL60. Again, today's sponsor is HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
The following message was written by ChatGPT.
Get the inside scoop on everything NHL playoffs with Locked On NHL. Join our expert hosts as they break down the latest news, games, and predictions. From the hottest players to the biggest upsets, we've got you covered. Don't miss a beat this postseason. Locked On NHL. Available on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Our money where our mouth is, backing up our teams right now. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and all the support you show us every single day. That's why we try to reciprocate that love with our big time bets. Hopefully we're making some money for you out there. Flip, start us off. Sir. Friday night. Who do you like? Who are you starting it? What's your lock of the night?
Okay, I'll go all three, and I'll go relatively quickly, even though I do have a few more numbers to throw out there, because these first few games have been tough, Steele. First couple of nights have been tough, and you can really, the old cliche with playoff hockey, you can throw those regular season numbers out the window. Sometimes you can, maybe sometimes you can't. So let's dive into the numbers quickly. Minnesota hosting these Dallas Stars. This one's for you, pal. When I looked into this a little bit, Steele, I wanted to take the Wild right away, number one, because I think Gustafsson coming back in. I just really like this kid, and I'm buying into it. They got embarrassed last game. They're a good home team, and the numbers prove it. Mini 9-4 in their last 13 games at home, and 8-4 in their last 12 versus Dallas at home. Give me the Wild on the money line to bounce back in a big way and take this series back in their direction for a -105 odds, Steele, because Vegas is saying what I was saying. Coin flip series. All these games are going to be coin flips. -105 for the Wild on the money line to bounce back. And
I like that pick as well. I also have the Minnesota Wild on the money line as well in Game 3.
My bad. I said I'd reel off all three and then stop.
No, you're all good, man. You're all good. No, I'm there with you. I've got Minnesota on the money line for Game 3. I'm really hoping that Joel Eriksson-Ek, Ryan Hartman, even John Klingberg can get back into the lineup. That will play a huge part into it. But going back to Minnesota, XL Energy Center, the buzz is going to be in the building. I've got Wild on the money line. That trend right there at home speaks for itself too. With that being said, I'm also going Kirill Kaprizov anytime goal in Game 3 as well. This is what I'm trying to, or kind of understanding with playoff betting as well. It's the player props do hit more frequently because it's the same team over and over again. So the superstars have to play out and play at their best. And you can usually depend on those superstars to ball out and score some goals, get some assists.
Come on, Austin Matthews.
I'm going Kaprizov anytime goal for my second pick, and that's where my lock of the night goes. Draisaitl anytime goal is my lock of the night. He's been sensational so far.
That feels like a free money bet, doesn't it? What a beast. What a beast. Like, how do the Oilers not go to a cup with those two guys that good? Like, you know what I'm saying? The rest of that team better figure it out, because I swear both of those dudes are going to want out of Edmonton if they don't start putting some hardware on their mantelpiece. That, and I mean the big one, Stanley Cup. Thank you very much. Now, last two for me, and then I'll get the lock of the night out here, Steele. You know I got to go to at least one over-under, and I think as much as the Boston Bruins didn't get theirs, they still scored 3 goals. And that 6-3 final, I think we're going to start to see a bit of run and gun. I think Ullmark might get rattled again now that they do have to head on the road. I could see another 4-3 final here, even 5-4. I'm going to take the over. Also, right now, it's sitting only at an even 6 because we are in playoff mode. Give me the over in this game, Steele. And then I looked into the numbers with these two teams over there, and I know playoffs, regular season, okay. The total has gone over the number in 5 of Boston's last 6 games overall, and over the number in 5 of Florida's last 6 against Boston. So I'm feeling a high-scoring game here. Give me the over 6 at a -120 odd. My lock of the night. The Edmonton Oilers, I think, are going to come out here. And now with that win under Stuart Skinner's belt and bang out the L.A. Kings tonight on the road. And again, looked into the numbers. Oilers 7-0 on the road in their last 7, and 6 of their last 7 against L.A. victories as well for the Oilers. Oilers, money line, lock of the night.
That's a trend I like to see, and great news for the Edmonton Oilers heading into L.A. With a tied series 1-1. It's been incredible playoff hockey so far. I've loved every single matchup.
Yep.
Still rooting hard for that Minnesota Wild team, though, in the Western Conference to go all the way. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you're tuning in every day, all week for the remainder of the postseason as Flip and I bring the heat Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time every single day. Thank you so much again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.